Tadashi Sudo, does Japanese animation suffer from the Galápagos syndrome? Anime industry journalist and analyst Tadashi Sundo wrote an article published by IT Media on Monday regarding the problems that the potential face the Japanese anime industry in the face of globalization. The central Japanese question behind the article was, does Japanese animation suffer from the Galápagos syndrome? The Galápagos syndrome is a term of Japanese origin which refers to products created in isolation for the global market that are difficult to export overseas. Soda argued that due to its distinct facial style, Japanese animation has historically been very popular with exported overseas since at least the 1960s, with titles like Astro Boy. In the 90s, titles like Akira and Ghost of the Show also successfully confirmed the unique appeal of Japanese anime, and the boom is still continuing to this day. However, as time has passed, other countries are producing animation with the similar appeal to Japanese anime. Instead, a defining word standard into the future, as Hollywood and Disney have done in the past. Japanese animation is at risk of suffering from the Galápagos syndrome, which creative teams overseas produce more globally appealing content. Suda argued that we need to change about Japanese animation is not the visual style, nor does the content need to change specifically to appeal to a global audience. The biggest thing that needs to change is that Japan itself needs more diversity, and it needs to become more exposed to foreign cultures. An example of a situation where there was a lack of knowledge regarding foreign perspectives, Suda brought up a controversy around the JoJo Bizarre Adventure OVA in 2008, where Showa apologized for a scene in which the villain Dio is shown reading the Quran. It is important to be aware that a large number of people were watching anime to an extent that was previously inconceivable and that these viewers come from diverse backgrounds. Soda wrote, there are quite a few things that are double that would previously not have realized. We ought to make the utmost consideration. We clarified that this is a separate matter from political correctness rather than globalization. It was a reflection to change the Japanese most society to avoid violent expression in children's media, ensuring gender balance in the cast of characters, and removing bias against gender, age, and race. The Sudo, this is not a matter of keeping up with the word, but in keeping up with the times. There are many things that were once permitted but are no longer permitted in this day and age, but this is a separate matter for globalization, or the Galápagos syndrome. Sudo's next point was that... hang on a sec. Sorry. So the next point was that, although there was been much concern in Japan regarding the uniqueness of Japanese animation, the rest of the world is beginning to change rapidly. Despite the fears and lack of exportability, Japanese animation has been transcending cultural barriers, and other countries are beginning to develop their own style of animation influenced by Japan. So the point at Netflix's anime category, which can refer to works that they want to develop in Japan, but are inspired by the visual style of Japanese animation. Stylistic quirks such as characters with large eyes were once derided or regarded as usual in Asia and the West, but are now becoming more commonplace in foreign animation. Japan has a very hard to change, but the world is changed dramatically. The uniqueness of Japanese anime, subject to the Galápagos syndrome, expanded to the world, and the uniqueness is now, in fact, becoming diluted. It observed, the spread of the Japanese style can be seen as a sign of success for Japanese culture. On the contrary, however, in both difficult times ahead of Japan, this style, which is thought that belong only to Japan, can be created outside the country, which compromises Japan's top position and increased competition. Soto does not believe that Japanese animation will lose its unique traits, but in the worst case scenario, Japan could lose out to its competition and although the visual style will remain in the world. It is because of Japan's previous success that the danger has become relevant. So where does the future of Japanese anime lie then? Given that the Japanese animation style is transcending cultural barriers, Soto suggested that the creative and production process on the Japanese side can also benefit from transcending national borders. Soto proposed making anime with a community of people who embrace the style and obey conscious or national origin. But Japanese anime has a foreign talent and culture that the place it is made does not have to be Japan. There are many international co-productions which result in failure, but about a community that does not have a conflict vision about the direction. It should be possible to create global works as a team, be included. The success of Hollywood films was spread in American culture because of the success. Talented people in the world straight from Hollywood, and people overseas take on the tradition and create things in their own right. Japanese anime can also become strong and bountiful by connecting many talented people all across the world.